Greetings, everybody. It's Karen Vaughn, and it's our favorite day, Wednesday, Working Diva Wednesdays, where we highlight women doing great things in Indianapolis and beyond. And let me tell you, the woman that we're about to hang out with in our living room for a bit today is running media. There's no other way to put it, from radio to TV to music and records. She has had a roster filled with our favorites from R&B like In Vogue, Phyllis Hyman, the OJs, and more. And she has one of the leading syndicated shows on radio right now. I want to introduce to you the CEO of Miles Ahead Entertainment, Miss Sheila Eldridge. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be
You're
here.
welcome. It's great to see you. It's great to see you. I've heard so much about you. I've seen some of the work that you've done, and now I actually get to have a chat with you. I'm extremely humbled.
Well, I enjoy it. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. I know that you started in radio, and everyone has their when I fell in radio story. So when did you fall in radio, Miss Sheila?
I was a sophomore at Howard University, and I was at WHUR. And it's interesting because as a student at the university, we couldn't work at the radio station, believe it or not, because it was a commercial station owned by a university. And so I put together a group of students and we infiltrated the station as interns. And that's when I fell in love. We just took over the weekends at the station, and it's been nonstop ever since. I just
Mhm.
love radio and communicating with people.
Awesome. So I know you're on air talent as well. Kind of worked in every department in radio. And from what I hear from the grapevine, our founder, Kathy Hughes, you babysat her son.
Yes, yes. Like
Wow.
I said, we were interns in the newsroom. She was the sales manager at the time, and he would come in after school, and we'd have
Mhm.
to watch and look out for him. And now to see him grow, her grow, and where, because I was there from the beginning, even before she bought her first radio station. And she is who I look up to. She's my mentor. I mean, she really is a trailblazer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And even to watch you segue from radio to having your own business, or segueing from what we would say corporate America to entrepreneurship, it can be very um overwhelming, exciting, scary. So tell us about your transition from radio and working in the corporate world to saying, you know what, I could do this. I can do
Well,
this on my own. I could build my own. Tell us about how you started and started to segue into entrepreneurship.
my mother saw the vision before I did.
Mm,
So when I left Howard and I worked at HUR for several years, I moved to California and then I worked at KJLH. And then I went inside at to a record label and started working because I believe that you always have to have a plan A, B, and C. So I learned kind of the behind the scenes of the record industry as well. And then I got laid off. I mean,
wow.
that's really what happened. They had a layoff. And I decided that, well, some of the artists said, well, we'll hire you. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll just do this temporarily. And what I thought was temporarily has been now a 30-year journey. But my mother was an accountant in the government, and she sent me some money and said, "You are not a 9 to 5. That's not who you are. So you better go for it now." And that's what I did. So
Oh,
it
that's
was
awesome.
kind of by accident. She saw it before I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, she knew the strength that you had.
Yeah, yeah, she did.
And to be able to, work in records and build relationships and meaningful relationships
Mhm.
where they see your work ethic, they see that you take initiative, they're able to see something in you that maybe you don't, or they like the way you work. So as you segued from being laid off, artists are like, hey, I want to work with you, and you're like, oh, That's amazing, right? Because you don't know how you're pouring into someone until you get the, oh, I want to work with you. You're like, really? Because you're just on your path working, right? You're just at the end of the day saying, I want to build my resume, I want to build my skill set, but it's so strong that others want to work with you and they want you to represent them. So can you talk to the importance of building meaningful relationships through your skill set and what you're able to bring to the table?
Well, I'm a believer that regardless of what your skill set is, it's a human relations business. It has to be about the business that you do and the way you respect and work with other people. In regard, whatever it is, the field is, that is so important. And that's what I've kind of lived by. People that work with me, I never say they work for me, I say they work with me. There's always got to be the culture of inclusion and us working together for one cause. So I think that's so important how you work with people. And moving into corporate America, you have to be able to be a visionary too and not be scared of not getting a paycheck. I could see that the music industry was changing, and it was, beginning to have its transitions from going from um, CDs to CDs to streaming, and I could see the industry going in another direction. And so what I decided to do was approach corporations that wanted to be in the music industry, that wanted to do strategic partnerships with the music industry. So my first client on the corporate side was Coca-Cola, and it was a campaign that we did with Sprite and hip hop artists, years ago, honestly. And so you got to look ahead and see what's coming and bet on yourself that and take that chance. But it
Mhm.
really, at the end of the day, it is about how you deal with and work with people.
Yeah. Human relations business. Well put.
Mhm.
Well put. So you launch your business, Miles Ahead Entertainment. You have your first corporate client, which is Coca-Cola. What were some of the first artists that you worked with?
Whew. Let's see, it was Patrice Rushen, it was Cameo,
Mhm.
it was, of course, Phyllis Hyman was one of those artists that came to me and said, I want you to work with me. And
Mm.
it's so interesting. Phyllis was the kind of person that she made sure that your deposits every week were in your account. I mean, and when you're just starting a business, that's very important.
Mhm.
And I mean, I worked with Phyllis for 17 years, so that's who she was. And then we moved from there to Janet Jackson. I picked up A&M Records, and then I worked with Jimmy and Terry, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and that just opened up Mint Condition, Sounds of Blackness, Low Key, all the artists that were on their label. I've spent probably the last 10 years working off and on with Jimmy and Terry and a lot of their projects. You know.
Yeah. I'm excited for their new album that they're working on, 30 Years in the
Yeah.
Making. We're playing the Babyface song, and I hear that everywhere. I hear that there's some songs with some other, I would say, key people in R&B, but it's not for me to reveal. But I can't wait for that album because, they are just such, to your point, of visionaries. They are just amazing at what they do, and they've worked with a plethora of artists throughout various formats and genres. So I'm
And they're
excited about
so
that.
humble. They're really so humble
Yeah.
that it's taken them this long to do this. And we had to talk them into doing this.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have. That's just not who they are. They believe in we make the music, we stay behind the scenes. I remember Terry Lewis always says to me, "Baby, you got to learn how to make money when you sleep." And I was like, "What do
Yes.
you mean by that?" And he said, with our writing and our publishing, when we're asleep, we're making money. And I've always, that's kind of stuck with me. But they are just real humble, great gentlemen. And I'm so excited with this new project.
Mm.
And then I forgot to say, In Vogue, I've worked with them for 30 years. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary last year, so that's kind of monitored. But I've been with them since the beginning.
Yeah. I see the awesome poster behind you.
Yeah, that's from South Africa. We went to the Cape Town Jazz Festival,
Oh,
and they
wow.
were
Tell us about that.
representing. Yeah, it was 3 years ago, and they and Andrea Day were representing the United States. It was artists from all over the world representing different countries. And we were in South Africa for almost 2 weeks. The festival lasted a week. So that was from the Cape Town Jazz Festival.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you'll laugh at you can see the other picture. That was when I was interviewing the Jackson Five in the beginning. You can look at their picture if you can see it close enough. And
We
Michael
see
was
the
there, and,
afros.
right, exactly, and no work on their face. It was original. And that was at HUR. That was one of my first interviews, and I was an intern at the radio station.
Nice, nice. Great memories that you have there that you are reminded of every day on your wall,
Yes.
as you continue to be a trailblazer in media. And when you launched your business, two-part question, Miles Ahead Entertainment, what was the first product or service that you offered, right? And then as you started to bloom, and of course this business is ever changing, it changes every day.
Mm.
When did you know that you needed to expand in other areas, and how did you do that? Because looking at your roster now and all what you do, it's like, wow, this black woman is doing it, right? But there's always the launching point and the beginning. So what was the first product or service that you offered, and when did you know that you needed to expand?
The first product and service was PR, public relations.
Mhm.
And when I left and went to California, I went to UCLA and took courses so I could really hone my skills in PR. And I did crisis management. And at that time, a lot of artists needed that. And so I spent the first 5 to 7 years really honing my craft in terms of PR and understanding that you have to be niche, that you can't be everything to everyone. So we were very niche on our clients. Clients came to us that we could take something from nothing. Is their first project. Nobody knew who they were. We could build. I'm always known for building people and building careers when I was just in the music industry. So I took about 5 to 7 years to really hone my skills because when you have your own business, you have to be careful because you have to be about the business of what you're selling, but you also have to know business, and how to run the operation of a business if you're going to be long term. So I got that down. And then I realized that it was more that we could offer than just PR. People aren't looking for just PR because you're only as good as your last hit. Okay. And that's a little
Right.
frustrating. Okay. So I said, well, why don't we create special events? Why don't we move into the events area? So that way, when we're representing a client, we can take an event to them and we build a PR campaign around that event that includes radio, TV, print, and now online. So I've kind of evolved into the events business. And then that was on the entertainment side. And I said, well, if I can do this for entertainers, I can do this for corporations. So I started targeting corporations. The other thing when you have your own business, you have to go to conferences outside of your comfort zone, outside of what you know how to do. So I would go to travel conferences, I would go to corporate conferences, engineer conferences, because I wanted to learn those industries to see how I could, provide services to them. So that's how I really began to grow, was really going and making new contacts and building this network that really has been the backbone of my business. People say that, you can't do business with your friends, but I tell you that I would not be in business today had it not been for people that I know and, as friends and associates that have looked out and given us business.
Nice. You also have, one show that I know everyone talks about, and that's Cafe Mocha. And you've launched that show. I know that throughout the years there have been different hosts. Um, Lonnie Love, MC Light, and others that have hosted this syndicated show that's played on various urban radio stations. Where did you get the idea to do that? How did that show come about?
Well, I went through a NAB program for broadcast ownership,
Mhm,
um, called the BLT program.
mhm.
And one of the people or one of the companies that helped sponsor me was Radio One, because you have to be sponsored by corporations that
Yes.
participate in it. And so I came out of the program, and 2 years later, we bought the Radio One cluster in Augusta, Georgia. I put together a group and we bought that cluster. And so I went there for 2 years to get the business up and running because I could not live in Augusta. And it just so happens that when I was there, I couldn't believe the programming. It just
Mhm.
was nothing that I felt represented women and black women. Um, and a lot of women were co-hosts of, Sybil with Tom, Shirley with Steve. There were a lot of women who were co-hosts, but not women that the conversation was coming from them. They led the conversation. And so that's how Cafe Mocha came about. I did not want it to be named after a person. It's about a collective of women. It was created by and for women. And we speak from a woman's perspective on issues, on lifestyle, from music, just every aspect of what we do. You know, that's what we do. We speak from our perspective. So
Mhm.
now it's hosted by Lonnie Love. And my thought was is that you have to have each host has to represent a woman. So Lonnie represents, of course, she was an engineer, HBCU, very well read. Then you got Yo Yo. When Light left, Light suggested to me Yo Yo, which I never would have thought. So Yo Yo has been with us now for 5 years after Light left. And Yo Yo represents that kind of down the way girl, she's. And then we have Angelique Perrin, who is an amazing voiceover character. She does characters for movies and voiceover. She's a great producer. And she's the girl that's looking for a man, trying to get married, have children. So when you listen to the show, you can relate to some one of those women,
Mhm.
and that's kind of the concept for Cafe
Yeah, yeah. I love the representing of different women, and I hear you. Women in radio always being that second mic or co-host and not
Mocha.
first mic. Um, and at the same time, we are who they
Rule the
market
world.
to,
Right, right, exactly.
right? And are based. The format is based on us listening,
We're the
but
buying power. We make the decision.
right. And to your point, in addition to that, most women are head of household, have the buying power that can support the clients that are on the radio.
Right.
But we aren't at that point yet of being equal when it comes to lead. We only have the conversation about salary and pay because that's a whole
That's
nother
a
interview,
whole
right?
nother
Right, that's
conversation.
a whole
Right,
nother
right.
conversation. But what do you think it will take for more women to be in leading roles on air and behind the mic and off the mic?
I think the time has come. I really do. I think that, last year, I always believe there's got to be a silver lining in everything. And that's hard to believe after last year, after the pandemic.
Yeah.
But what it's taught us is how to be resourceful, how to transition, and so I think you're going to see more people in management seeing that what women can do and how we can lead and we can create. So I think that is one of the things that's so important is just seeing that we can lead. It's difficult. I have never understood why more women aren't able to lead. But I'll tell you the other thing is that you have to be able to raise money. Okay. That was the thing about Miss Hughes. She knew how to go and raise money. I remember when she bought WOL, her first station, AM station, which everybody said that's crazy. Why is she buying an AM? She knew what she was doing. She was raising money. And so it's very important that you know how to build your relationships and understand the business to be able to raise money. So, if you're an entrepreneur, let's put it that way.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, no,
I hope
that's
that answered
definitely
your
important.
question.
What'd you
Yeah,
say?
I hope that answered your question.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Being about the business of money and being about the business of what you do and doing it well. So, yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. You
Hmm.
answered the question, Miss Sheila. And for those that, are working on building their business, and especially being a creative that you are, what is your creative process, coupled with being strategic, because I know that you are, in building your events that you do or shows that you do? Where do you get your inspiration? Where do you get your creative mojo from? Because um, now in business, with knowing your business, knowing your product, right? Going after your passion, um, the creative process sometimes gets bogged down, but you still have to tap into that, right? So, how do you go about doing that?
Well, it's a combination of what's missing.
Mm.
Just asking and having, like, even now, every week I have a creative meeting with my team. And the last question I always ask is, what have you heard about or what have you seen that's missing? Because that's where you want to go. Everything is very niche now. So you have to look at what's missing. And the other is research. You have to do your research in terms of, um, you know, the audience. Who is the audience that you want to target? At the end of the day, you want to build events, but that event has to, number one, drive people, and that event has to do ROI for corporate America. And so now that, once again, this has challenged us to look at how we do business, because now everything's going virtual. Did you know a year ago that you'd be sitting on this platform?
No, but I absolutely love
Right.
it.
I love it.
And it does a couple of things. What you discussed, it can make you money. You're more productive, right? Because from the
Yes,
radio end of this, I have the audio and the video, right? And I could save time and resources on one
definitely.
platform.
Hmm.
So I look at it
Hmm.
as a win-win-win.
Right.
It's a
So I said,
return of investment on my time, it's a return on investment on my productivity, and it's a return on investment on the actual sponsorship or dollars that can be made from it.
exactly, exactly. So this is a new entity and vehicle that we hadn't even thought about, that now people are figuring out how to monetize. So that's my challenge to my team now is, so how do we monetize this? So we create programs. We create, long form programs, short form programs. We have Cafe Mocha to Go, which is just a little 10-minute trendy show on Facebook.
Hmm.
We have our Salute Her Awards. That is a awards program that now is being shopped and has interest from networks.
Hmm.
So we've all kind of figured out how to move into this new arena. And but the challenge is, how do we monetize it? How do we
Yeah,
go about that?
yeah. Well, we'll all work on that together.
Together.
You've worked with artists and on-air talents, and even moving into the influencer arena as well. What would you say to those budding on-air talents, whether it's radio, internet, podcasting, influencers on social media, to really become a guru in their niche?
I would say, know your audience, know and engage your audience. Test your audience. Social media is essential. If you're a personality, you have to have a presence, online. You have to have a presence on the digital media. So I think that is the key: is that being versatile and knowing that every time you go out, you're on. Don't think there's ever a time that you are either on this platform or you're going out to speak or to MC or something. Always be on and look the part. Don't ever let your guard down. If you want to, because that's brand building. That's what that is. You
Hmm.
know, and that is so important that you really, but you learn who your audience is and who you want to really target and address them, and build that base, because that's what corporate America is looking for with influencers. They're looking at your base building, and of course, your following.
Yeah. And also how people are interacting with you. What are
Hmm.
your analytics? What are your insights? They insight they want to know. Yeah.
Right. No question.
Hmm. So, Miss Sheila, you have been amazing to chat with. I feel like I've learned so much in this short amount of time, from building your business, to building relationships, to building your niche. You're going to help so many people that are listening now, that are watching now. And, share with us some of the challenges that you've had in your business. Like one challenge that was just like, oh, how do I get through this? And you made it to the other side, because
Yeah.
it's the easy stuff that's great, right? Those successes are the successes that we feel that we can attain, right? But it's that stepping outside of your comfort zone, or that challenge that you did not expect, that you still walk through like a giant.
Uh, Going from local radio and being in Augusta and deciding that I was going to move into the syndication business,
Mhm.
which is a national business. Not that I know everyone around the country and everything. That was a challenge. And for the first year, for the first almost year, maybe year and a half, we really only had three stations. But we had, you know, Chicago, we had Dallas, we had Atlanta, but we didn't really have, a lot of stations. And then there was a gentleman, and it's so true in the syndication business, you are not in business unless you have New York City. You have to have New York. And Dion Livingston, who went to Howard, okay, and this is once again relationships.
Yeah.
We knew one another from Washington and Howard. He gave me a shot. He said, "Okay, I'll put your show on. If it performs, you got 6 months. If it doesn't perform, you kiss me." I said, "Don't you worry. Okay, we will get it done." And we have been on WBLS now for almost 8 years. But it was because Dion gave me a shot. And it wasn't, he liked the show and it was a good show, but he knew my passion and he knew that I was going to make that show happen, you know. And so that was the biggest challenge for me, is going from local to national and understanding how it works. And once again, how you go about building that business and monetizing that business and then building relationships. So that was probably the biggest challenge because I didn't know what I was doing, quite honestly.
You figured it out though.
I figured it out. Okay. After I raised that money, I figured it out.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but that was probably in my business, my biggest challenge. Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a segment during the show where we ask in the interview, because you've shared so much with us, right? But yet we are working on collaborating as women in business, working together, learning from each other. So what need do you have in your business? What do you need, sis, that will help you reach your next level? What do you need from other sisters that may be watching, the sisters that may be listening? Is it to listen to your show? Is it to log onto your website? Is it to engage with you on social media? What do you need?
The one most important thing we need is more affiliates because we're growing now. We've been fortunate in that we have major markets, but growing our affiliates. So that is one of my biggest needs. The other is that we're moving to television. We're moving to broadcast. So, getting that opportunity to take one of our properties to television or to streaming, into a streaming service. So
Mhm.
that's the next challenge. But that's one of the things we need. But mostly it's continuing to build our affiliates and to build Cafe Mocha and taking, like I said, that concept now to television.
Have you ever thought about starting your own streaming business?
No, I haven't. I gotta close. I gotta close some things before I get to that. You have to. That's the other
Understood.
thing. You have to pace yourself. You have to pace yourself, and you can't be everything to everyone. And I believe in my kind of mantra is networking works. It's just we don't always do enough of it. So that's where we are right now. It's just kind of growing where we are. And getting through this last year has not been easy for
Mhm.
anyone. and kind of recovering and getting through that is so important.
What have you seen in the last year, especially when it comes to the business of broadcast? This time last year, so many people were, you know, being laid off, being
Hmm.
furloughed, businesses closing, clients, their product or services online being shut down, or the restaurants are shut down. So the advertising dollars weren't necessarily there, but slowly I don't want to say things are coming back to normal because it will never be what it was. But things seem to be increasing in a positive way. But what has been something that you've seen in the last year when it comes to broadcast in our business that has evolved, that has been a positive through this storm?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think corporate America, holding them accountable, because it's a little more obvious now,
Mhm.
where they're placing their dollars and how they're placing their dollars. And they have to give now, I think it's brought diversity to the forefront. And I think that's so important because that is helping them look at properties that they never looked at before, looked at stations that they never looked at before. It's not just about the dollars at the station, it's about the audience, it's about the ownership. It's about how are you really, as a corporate citizen,
Mhm.
showing your diversity with your dollars.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's the key that I'm seeing, and that we have to hold them accountable. We can't make this just a moment in time. It has to be something that is sustainable. And that is the biggest challenge that I think we're going to have. But I do think it's a challenge that corporate America is beginning to come to the forefront, and do more to open it up to support radio.
Yeah. It's not a moment, it's a continuous movement that we have to continue to push along. And with that being said, how can one listening now, watching now, one that's just an everyday person, how can they push the movement forward? How can they help you? Help us.
Help us. Yeah. I think knowing it's the next 2 years and the next 4 years are going to be essential for every person, every black person, to really take accountable the voting rights and take that very personal, your right to vote, and know who your representatives are, know who your councilmen are, make your voice heard. If we don't do that in the next 2 to 4 years, then we're hurting our next generation. This is really a point in history for us that we have got to stand up and make our voices heard. Because if we don't, we're going to the next generation is going to feel it. So I would say that's what we all need to do. Know your representatives. Most people don't even know who their mayors are. They don't know who their council people are. Know that and voice that. Go online. The time you put in on social media, if necessary, put some of that time in, you know, in the political arena and making sure your voice is heard on important rights. I mean, just what's happening with police and black men and black people is a result of us, I think, not doing enough to make our voices heard within our local communities.
Well said, Miss Sheila. Well said.
I'm sorry, that's right now a passion
Well
point,
said. And when it comes to our brothers, maybe there's a cafe noir that you need to start with some
Mhm.
brothers or something like that to talk about those issues and let them stand strong, because I feel like um it's something that is needed. We feel scared for our brothers, our fathers, our
Mhm.
uncles, our sons, our husbands, and really would love to tap into their vulnerability and their realness of what this is and what
Right.
everyday life is for them. So I'm gonna put it out there. Cafe Noir.
Okay. Well, we have a feature on the show called the Swag Award, and that's
Hmm.
every week where we kind of feature a man and what he's doing, from someone popular and actors and performers to just the everyday brother. in the neighborhood that our affiliates send us of men that we need to feature, because I always say men like to listen like a fly on the wall.
Yes,
Okay,
they
so
do.
we want to make
Yes, they
sure
do.
that we don't alienate them and that we lift them up as well. You know?
Everyday
But I'll
brother.
keep
I like
that in
that
mind.
too.
I like that.
I like
Yeah, I
that
like.
though. Yes.
Mhm, mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
A fly on the wall moment. I interviewed Jay Ellis
Uh,
from Insecure,
okay.
and I posted the interview on my Facebook page. And lo and behold, 60% of the comments and likes were all men. I
Really?
was like, oh, fellas, watch this show.
Yeah.
There's no denying it. There's no denying it. I hear, fellas talking about the show in the hallway at work, and I was like, let me look at these analytics. 60% men.
Hmm. Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes.
So, mm,
So they're
mm.
definitely the fly on the wall that you mentioned, Miss
And
Sheila.
Jay's pretty
But we love
fine,
our
so I'm
men. We're not
surprised.
bashing you.
Okay, no
We're not
question.
bashing you. We love you for it.
Ah,
Well, this has been so great speaking with you. I know you're super busy, and just thank you for taking the time to chat with me about business and broadcast and all the great things that you have done and will continue to do. And just know that we're rooting for you here 24/7.
Thank you, and to you and the station. Much congratulations on all the work that you're doing. I've heard about you, Karen. Okay, you've been okay. You've been around, So congratulations on all your work and everything, and thank you for talking to and doing this with female entrepreneurs. I don't, hopefully a lot of the women that you talk to are probably entrepreneurs, because we need to inspire one another. We need to,
Yes.
push and support one another. So I appreciate the time.
No problem. It's been my honor. And if one wants to follow you, if our listeners, they want to follow you, they want to check out what you're doing, where can we find you online and on social media?
You can find me on social media. We are Miles Ahead on all platforms. And then, of course, the website is Cafe. Well, I have a Miles Ahead site, but that's a more corporate site. CafeMochaRadio.com is Cafe Mocha.
Awesome. Well, you be safe and continue to stay home and do what you have to do, because I can't wait to where one day we're out and about and I can just give you a hug.
And yes, yes, yeah. Hopefully, I'll get to Indianapolis sooner, sometime. Okay, or if
Sometime.
you get to Washington D.C., please.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks again, Miss Sheila.
Take care.
All righty. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.